that might have lived during that time of my employment here. And I absolutely no one, because when I came here, I was the youngest of the boys of color that came here from Savannah, Georgia, from Garfield, Georgia, by way of Savannah, Georgia. And I walked away from home. I didn't run away. I walked away because I just felt that I was 17 years old and should have gotten more of a better treatment, I'll put it that way, for my labor in the fields. I was a rural country boy. My father was a very large landowner, the son of a slave, and he died at 85 years old. And of course, I am also, he was a slave, I am his son. But after 17 years, I felt that I should have some of the money that I worked for. The salary or the pay for a day then was 50 cents. Wow. And you would work from sunup to sundown for 50 cents, 5 days a week. And you could multiply that times 5. You know what your salary was for that Saturday. You got paid Saturday morning. But making a long story short, I felt I should have gotten some of that money. If nothing more but just 150 cents. But I didn't get nothing. And I was tired, worn, and weary of working for nothing. So I decided I was going to leave and not ask for one dime. And I did. I left home, I walked away from home on a Saturday evening. And my wife here was my sweetheart. The one that I really felt that loved me for who I was and what I was. And she stood by me, and I left without telling her, and I came to Savannah. Now, I borrowed 35 cents from some friends of mine in a little town called Twin City, Georgia. 25 cents from one man, 10 cents from another, and a nickel from another to get 35 cents to come to Savannah, Georgia. And I went and sit on the bus station bench, Greyhound bus station bench, from 4 o'clock to 9 o'clock when the Greyhound bus came and took me to Savannah, Georgia at 9 p.m., picked me up at this bus station at 9 p.m. I arrived in Savannah bus station at 12 a.m. Not a penny in my pocket. I told the cabbie, that's what they call him, I have no money. But if you'll take me to 315 Defford Street, I'll ask my friend to give me the 50 cents and I'll pay you. He looked at me. He said, you know, I'm not going to charge you anything. You go, and God go with you. I'm not going to charge you nothing. I got in his car, and he dropped me off. And I slept on a pallet A floor pallet consists of a quilt, a pillow, and a sheet. Took off my top clothes, kept on my underclothes, and I slept on the floor from about 1:30 till 8 Sunday morning. So I told my friend, I have an uncle that lives on Huntington Street. If you'll take me around there, I'll get some money and I will pay you. And he says, well, okay. They fixed breakfast for me. So we ate and we went to Huntington Street, which is no longer there now because it was a ghetto. And they have torn it down, made these government houses. Mm-hmm. So my uncle was Moses Oliver, a railroad man for over 41 years. He was gone. His wife was there. And I told Aunt Bert, I said, Aunt Bert, I wanted to come here and I don't have any money and I want to ask you and Uncle Mose to let me stay here until I could find me a job. She said, well, your uncle is not here and I can't tell you nothing until he comes. So I said, okay. But anyway, she said, go up there, go upstairs, get in the bed, and your uncle will be here tomorrow, meaning Monday. But he came Sunday night. The train came Sunday night, so he was home by 4 or 5 a.m. Monday morning. So I heard her tell him, your nephew is in there, Cleveland is in there. So he stated, what? I said, yeah, he's in there. So make a long story short, I got up, scared, shaking, didn't know what he was going to do. He said, hey, boy. I said, fine, how you, Uncle Mose? All right, what you doing here? I said, I had to leave home, Uncle Mose, and I needed to come trying to find me a job. So make a long story short, he said, job? What you going to do? I said, well, anything. So I asked him if he could tell me where I could go to an unemployment place. He said, yeah, it's down so-and-so street, around the corner, go ahead. So I went, and I was given a job in Savannah, Department of Labor, that there was a need for a bellhop on Jekyll Island, Brunswick, Georgia. I said, I'll take it. The lady says, all right. Going through the procedure, give me your name and address, Social Security, and everything. I had no Social Security. Never had one in my life. I lied and said I lost it. So she says, all right. When you get the number, call me back. I said, yes, ma'am. So I went. She says, make a long story short, here is your schedule. Remember, you go to the bus station, get a bus from Savannah to Brunswick. Tomorrow morning, the bus leaves at 9 a.m. It's about a 3 or 4 hour ride from here to Brunswick. You be at Pier 6 before 4 p.m. tomorrow. Robert E. Lee will be leaving, going to Jekyll at 4 p.m. or 6 o'clock after she's loaded with merchandise. Sure enough, I was at Pier 6 the very next day, and I asked the bus driver, how could I get to Pier 6? He says, I don't know. Go in there and ask them. I don't live here. He just drove the bus. So I went in and I asked the taxi. A taxi. He said, "Where you want to go?" I said, "The Pier 6 to get to Robert E. Lee to go to Jekyll Island." He said, "Oh, I know exactly where you want to go." He says, "Okay, go down there 2 blocks and go to the left and look down that street and you'll see Pier 6. He said, "The Robert E. Lee is already docked there now. You want me to take you?" I said, no, I can walk down there. I had one little grip. So I walked down there. I stood on the dock till they finished loading the Robert E. Lee. Got on the Robert E. Lee, and they put me off right out here at the dock. And whenever I got off the boat, I didn't know which way the hotel was, and I asked someone, "Which way is the Jekyll Island Hotel?" He said, "Go straight up that little," it wasn't nothing like what it is now. "Go right up that little path there, and you'll see that tower up there?" He said, "That's it. That's the tower. Go there." So I came in, sure enough, I come in right down there, because that's where people of color had to come in. We couldn't go in the front door. So we come in down there. And then we went there and went upstairs, and I went to the front desk. Mr. Smith, who was the supervisor of the day shift, who was a Baptist minister. And I told him that I was sent here from the Department of Labor for a job. He said, he said, "Oh, yeah, we got the job for you." He said, "Earl Hills," that was the captain of the Bellhop, night and day. Mm-hmm. "Come here, Earl Hills." So Earl Hills came in haste, said, "We got a man for you tonight." And Earl said, "Who?" He said, "That's him over there." So Earl said, "What's your name?" I said, "John Newkirk." He said, "You come to work?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Well, we got a job. When can you go?" I said, "When can you start?" I said, "Now." He says, "No, you got to get dressed first." I said, "Yeah." He said, "Yeah, you have to get dressed." So making a long story short, he got me signed in, told Mr. Smith he would have me back there at 11 o'clock to start. But he wanted to show me at least a half an hour earlier so that I would know north end, south end, ice, drinks, and everything. I said, "Okay." We went down there where the horses was, but they had moved the horses, so the help stayed and lived over the stables. The horses had lived downstairs, so the men had a dorm at the very last where the horses stayed, and the ladies had a dorm at the front of where the horses stayed. So they gave me a room. No one was in. I got dressed, took a shower, and he said, "I'll be back for you by 10 o'clock. I said, "Okay." And I dusted off nobody had lived in that room, I guess, for months or whatever. It was just dusty. So I just got something and dust off the bed and put my sheet, pillowcase on the pillow, and I got my bed ready, and I had a shower, and I had on a wrinkled white shirt. So he said, "Now you're going to have a white coat. Do you have a black necktie?" I said, "I don't have no black necktie." He said, "I got one for you." He gave me a leather black necktie. And that was really something. I never had a leather black necktie. And so he said, all right, get ready, let's go. So we came back up here, walked from down up here, come under there and went upstairs. And Mr. Smith told Earl, show him around, and he did. So I went from one end of this hotel to the next, first and second floor. He said, now, if you know the north from the south, you don't have no worry about what north rooms are and what south rooms are. First, second, and third floor. And the ice is right down here under this building where it was. Drinks, so forth and on. So I said, okay, making a long story short, 11 o'clock came. Bing! I didn't know what the bell was for. Front, Mr. Smith now is ringing the bell for the bellhop to come to the front desk because he has to go to a room up on the third floor to take some ice, ginger ale, and some cokes. And I went up there and I said, okay. And whenever they give me, he wrote it on a little piece of pad. So many cokes, so many ginger ales, and pitcher of ice, room so and so. Oh, I went down there, got the ice, got the ginger ale. The drinks were sitting out here, so you just pick up which one you want. But you had to make sure that you only picked up what he said, because when anything was missing, I was responsible. So I said, okay, and I carried it up there, and I knocked on the door, and it said, always knock. Identify yourself. Do not open that door and go in. I knocked on the door. Who's there? I said, Bellhop, John. I said, I come to bring you your ice and drinks. Okay, come on in. I went in. He said, all right. Set it over there. Open the drinks. Open 2 sodas, 1 ginger ale, and pour this pitcher full of ice from my pitcher. So they had glasses, sitting around the table, and they said, put so much ice in this one, ice in that one, and then pour. Half full, do not fill it up. I says, okay. When I got finished, he handed me 50 cents. Goodbye. That was a day's work right there.
Yeah.
50 cents. Oh, I said, I got 50 cents. Wow. Making a long story short, I kept getting bing, front desk, up.
Oh, you were gone.
Oh, I
ready
was
to
gone.
go.
Now I know where. Up, down, north, south. And I did that until almost 7 a.m. because they gamble all night.
Oh, okay.
Slept all day. So I got, my time was up. And so they says, Earl Hill come back. Nathaniel was his assistant. Nathaniel came and said, okay, John, you can go now. It was about 7:30. He came late. John, you can go now. He said, you got everything covered? I said, yeah, I got everything covered. You can go now. Okay. You come down there and eat before you leave. So I ate breakfast. Oh, I was so hungry. Hadn't had nothing in 2 days. I ate grits, sausage, egg. I mean, when I say eggs, I mean 4 or 5 eggs, scrambled eggs, 4 slices of toast. I didn't drink coffee. I had 2 glasses of milk. And now I'm full. I'm going to bed, going down here to go to bed. But before I could go, I had to get a broom, clean the web, cobwebs down. Oh, it was full of cobwebs. So finally I got to bed about 8 or 9 o'clock. And I slept about 2. And I come back up here and I said, oh boy, this is something. I counted my money. I had so much money. And see, that money was so heavy because it was steel.
Wow.
And the steel was so much heavier than what money is now. Mm-hmm. And you see, the dollar bills were big, wide, something like this almost. Looked like Confederate money, mm-hmm. but it was actually dollar bills. And I had about 4 or 5 of them. And I said, oh, what am I going to do with all this money? So I said, all right. Miss Culpepper's office was right there. But you had to go inside to it. Mm-hmm. And that was her office. Yeah, that's Miss Culpepper. She was the personnel, the banker, host. She was personnel, the banker, the pay person. And we got paid on twice a month, the 1st and the 15th. If the month had 30 days, we got $15 on the first 2 weeks, $15 on the second 2 weeks. If the month had 31 days, we got $15 on the first 15 days and $16 on the next 16 days. I only took mine for one time, and I told Miss Culpepper I would not sign up anymore because I was getting too much money.
You gave the money back?
I didn't know what to do with this money.
Wow.
So I couldn't put it in the bank.
Oh.
Because black people didn't bank here. Uh-huh. So she says, okay, John, I will take your money, but you got to sign for it. You got to sign here that you did not receive it. And I signed John Newkirk, and she put it back in what was called a safe. So I saved my money. So,
oh, she was saving it for you.
Yeah, she was.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, she was.
I thought you were giving it back.
No. She was saving it for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was in a big brown envelope. I mean, these old heavy-duty brown envelopes. Mm-hmm. And finally, I worked on and worked on. Now, I didn't have no clothes but what I had on my back when I came here. Miss Ann, who was a black woman who had been here for over 40-something years. She was retired, but because she was so good to the whites, and they loved it, Miss Ann, because she boiled crab for white and black, and the white loved it, her crabs. So she would sell the big crabs to them for 25 cents and the small crab to us for 10 cents a nickel. So she would wash my clothes that week. And I told Mr. Earl now I had about $91. Never had that much money in my life. I said, Mr. Earl, I need to go to Brumley and buy me some clothes. I don't have no clothes. He said, well, John, you can go Thursday or Friday. Which one of the days you want? I said, I go any day. He said, well, go Friday. So I went Friday. I went to Brunswick. I took my Hamper Nugget cigar box, where I had my money in, mm-hmm. and I went to Brunswick over there to an exclusive men's shop. Oh, this was a men's shop that was so out of this world. Nice neckties, shirts, you name it. I bought me 5 short sleeve shirts, 4 pair of pants, I guess 10 or 15 pair of underwear, top and bottom, socks. And then I went to another shoe store because my feet were so big, I couldn't buy his shoes, were too small. So I had to go to a shoe store where they sold shoes for big feet. When I got there, he said, yeah, what size you wear? I said, I wear 12. I lied, but I actually wore 13.
Oh, God.
So, all right, he got a 12 and brought it out. Here it is. And I couldn't get it on. He said, you don't wear no 13, no 12, you wear a 13. I said, okay. So he went and got me a 13. And I was a 13 triple E, and my black one. And I slid my feet in there. He said, oh, it's all right. This here shoe here is $2.50. He said, but because you have a 13 size shoe, you have to pay $1 extra. $3.50.
Wow, that's a big markup for one size.
Yes, yes. So I said, all right. So make a long story short, I done bought all the underclothes, top clothes, and shoe, belt, everything.
You were ready to go.
I had now about $9 left of this $91.
Oh, God. You had to come back and make more now.
Come back and make more now. I come down to the dock, got on the Robert E. Lee, and got off over here, and I am now. I bought me a suitcase for $1.25. Big, big suitcase, but I didn't know it wasn't supposed to get wet. It was cardboard underneath that.
Oh, gosh.
And I said, I want this suitcase. He says, it's $1.25. And he put all my clothes in it. Now I got me a brand new suitcase, and I got on the boat, Robert E. Lee, and came back. Got off and come here and ate, went down and put my clothes. I didn't have the closet, something like that. I hung everything in there. Now I am fixed. I have I had pretty hair. I had pretty black curly hair. And I used Moraline. That was the grease. Mm-hmm. And with a fine tooth comb, and I comb and hit the jump back. It was so pretty. So I said, I'm going to work early tonight because I'm all dressed up. I bought me a brand new leather black tie for 50 cents. I bought me a brand new bow tie for 25 cents leather. So now I got a brand new shirt, a brand new black tie, brand new pants, brand new shoes. I am dressed to kill. When I came in, Mrs. Smith, who was a Baptist minister, said, John, you're looking so good. Boy, where you been? I said, Mr. Smith, I've been to Brunswick to buy me some clothes. He was so thrilled with me because I was one of the only colored bellhops who would listen to him because he would always teach and tell us, don't get in any trouble, do this and do that. I liked it to listen to Mr. Smith. So sure enough, I wasn't supposed to start to work till 11, but I was there at 10:30. And he would talk to me, and I started to work at 11 o'clock sharp because when the bing, oh, that's money. When I hear that bell, that's money. I worked that night. I made $8 and something.
Wow.
Each night it was making more and more because I was doing it faster and faster. So making a long story short, I was here as the bellhop in charge at night for nearly over a year. I was in charge. And after a few months, I asked Mr. Earl Hill, who was in charge of everything, I wanted to go home because I didn't tell him I had a girlfriend. So I said, He said, well, how long you want off? I said, Mr. Earl, could I have 5 days? It took 2 days to travel. So I was going to be with her one day and be with my parents the other day. So he said, okay, go ahead. I dressed up. Oh, my. Went to see
Put
her.
on your leather tie, didn't you?
Yes. Yes. It was a country church called Lane Grove Baptist Church. That's the church they would go to when they didn't have service. So my dad and I went to Lane Grove Baptist Church because I know she was going to be there. And sure enough, she was there. And I was dressed. I had a blue serge suit, blue tie, white shirt, brand new shoes. She saw me, she's old. I said, And so I came back, and about 2 or 3 weeks, a month or more, she moved. And she didn't tell me she was moving. So what was so depressing, I had been told by her brother, you ain't going to get Ida Bell because my brother is going to marry Ida Bell. You just as well forget her. You ain't going to get her because my brother's child is going to marry her. So I hadn't said nothing. I said, okay. So make a long story short, she wrote me a letter and said, Dear John, I have moved and I do not live where I had lived before. I misread the letter. I thought she was saying, Dear John, I have married and I do not love you anymore.
Uh-oh.
I balled it up right in there.
You were about to get on the Robert E. Lee again, weren't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I balled it up. So me and Fuller, who was a friend of mine, he was a bellhop on the day shift. And I was a bellhop on the night. So I balled it up and started to tear it up. But something said, don't tear it up, don't tear it up. I put it in my pocket. So me and Fuller went down to play horseshoe. That was our game. So Fuller says, I got to go upstairs to get me some ice water, because we lived on upstairs over the horses, you know. But the horses wasn't down there then. So he went upstairs. While he was going upstairs to get some ice water in a glass, I took it out and I read it. And something said, read it slow. And it said, Dear John, I have moved from where we used to live, and I do not live there anymore. This is my new address. If you want to write me, please write me to Route 3, Millen, Georgia. I love you, honey. Bye-bye. Oh, boy.
You needed to go find an iron so you could crease it back out.
Yes! Oh, I said, oh, Lord. I got set right down. Then, I was a 10th grade student. I had very good handwriting. And I wrote her a darling letter. Dear darling, I received your letter today. I'm so glad to hear from you. And I love you and thank you so much for writing me. I don't have time to write you because I'm on the job tonight, but I will write you a little later when I have more time. I put it in the mailbox. I didn't have a stamp. Mr. Smith.
All those coins you were getting at night, you had to go find you a stamp.
Yeah. So I said, Mr. Smith. He said, what you want, John? I said, could you sell me a stamp? I want to mail a letter. Because I had to carry the mail down to the dock and bring the mail back. So he says, a stamp, it was 3 cents. He gave me the stamp. He wouldn't charge me. He gave me the stamp, put it on there, and I gave him that. He put it in there. So I carried it down to the Neptune. The Neptune, the Biscayne, come early and go. So the Neptune captain gave me the mail coming in, and I gave him the mail bag going out. And I said, I hope she get that letter tomorrow. So making a long story, I stayed here from then until nearly the end of 1948. And I left here and went to Miami, Florida. And I got a job driving school bus for Mannheimer Private School and Pennsylvania Avenue. And Miss Mannheimer liked me because she and Mr. Abe Mannheimer owned the Mannheimer Private School. So she said, John, have you ever drove a bus before? I said, yes, ma'am. I drove a bus in Twin City, Georgia for 2 years. And I have a license. And I'm familiar with bus driving. So making a long story short, it was a private school for rich children. And she says, all right, you be here tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock. The bus has to be on its route at 7, but I want to show you what you have to do before you get going. So sure enough, I caught the bus, came over to Pennsylvania Avenue. Miss Mannheimer was up, and they had a small yellow school bus, Mannheimer Private School. So she said, this is your bus, and I knew how to drive it. It was a Ford. So she said, this is your bus, and she gave me a list of names like this on a card, you know what I mean, a pad, clipboard. She said, go to this hotel, and all of them is on Collin Avenue except one. Go from start down south end and go all the way up to the north, which is Washington Road, Miami Beach, and then come down over here to this street. I forget what it was. You got 2 students to pick up. Well, and those I was on my way back to the school. But make a long story short, I worked there for over 2 years for Miss Mannheimer. But my greatest experience was right here at Jekyll Island.
And how long exactly were you working here?
I worked here. It was
47.
from 47 and most of 48.
It's about a year and a half.
At least. So I knew all of the millionaires' homes here.
Mm-hmm.
I met Mr. J. Paul Getty.
J.P. Morgan?
J.P. Morgan.
That's what I saw it in the email. Yeah.
Yes, J.P. Morgan.
Yeah. He was one of the tycoons from back in the day.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, he was so dynamic.
Yeah.
So Earl Hill and I went to meet Mr. J. Paul Getty, and when he was already off the boat now, coming up the driveway, and when he looked up and saw Earl and Earl saw him, Mr. Getty, Earl, where have you been? The boat got here a little early. And Earl and I was supposed to be down there waiting on him. So the boat got here a little early, and we didn't know it. So making a long story short, you never shook his hand. You did not shake his hand. He said, hello, Earl. Who is this you got with you? Earl said, this is John Newkirk. He's my night bellhop. So anyway, make a long story short, we went down there. His luggage was sitting all by himself. He had brand new leather.
Wasn't that cardboard, was it?
Not cardboard at all. I'm talking about the real thing with his initial on it. And then the side, he had his tailor to build him a bag to put over it.
Oh, gosh.
And then the luggage slid up in that bag. And Earl said, now, don't you lay his luggage down, because he don't want it scratched, and he don't want, got to be careful. So I said, okay. We brought his luggage up over there, he could come up the step. We couldn't. We went up from back here. And Earl knew exactly where his room was, but we had to get the other guest luggage off and get it in, out there in where they check in, the front desk. But Mr. J. Paul's luggage was already by itself, but he's already gone up to his room on the 4th floor. And he told Earl, you know what I want? Yes, sir, Mr. Gator, I want. So what he wanted, crushed ice, a Coca-Cola, and his favorite drink. I can't think the name of that favorite drink. But Earl told me, he said, now when you take him his drink, do not pour it in the glass like that. He says, open it and pour it so it'll run downside the glass. Slow, don't pour fast now, slow, and only pour a half a glass. Don't make it fizz. He don't want fizz. Then put in 2 scoops of ice. He had one of them silver stainless steel spoons for his ice. Dipped it out and put 2 in there. Then it's about this full with ice and his drink. Now you don't leave him with a wet glass. You dry his glass off, set it on the table, and say, Mr. Getty, there it is. Is there anything else, sir? Take my shoes over there. Earl know what to do. He had a valet that he put each one of his bags on. So I had to take shoes it was buckled, the suitcase was buckled, big white, unbuckle it, open it up. His valet had everything tied down so nothing moved. He had 4 suits. His 4 suits was to hang on this side and 4 shirts this side, and then his belts and ties over here. And then down here where his shoes was, and his shoes was in a pouch with his initial on them. Polished like brass. He took them out, put them down there, 2 by 2. After I got finished, I said, I'm finished, sir. You finished? I said, yes, sir. All right. Tell Earl I'll see him. He never gave me a dime. But his rule was he never tipped until he was ready to leave.
Oh. Sometimes those are worth waiting for, aren't they?
Yes, they were. But by that time now, he was on the phone. I didn't know who he was talking about. He was talking to Mr. Briggs, who was the supervisor of the entire island. So Mr. Briggs must have told him that boy, John, up there is all right. We checked him out, and he's real good. Don't worry about it. And when he got off the phone, he was so thrilled with me. And Earl said, don't never reach for his hand. He said, if he like what you're doing, he's going to hit you on the back. That's what he did. That's what he did. So I said, okay. He stayed here for 2 days. And Earl had been told on the 3rd day to have him down there at the dock at 8 o'clock. Neptune was going to pick him up, ferry him into Brunswick. And then he was going to New York and then back to England. So making a long story short, when he got ready to leave, he gave Earl $20. And you know what? Earl turned around and gave me the whole $20.
Oh, gosh.
Like, ooh, do you know what $20 was?
That was like months worth of pay
That was
originally.
over a month of labor.
Yeah.
I didn't know what, and you know those dollars were big, and his dollar was brand new bills. He did not want old bills, and would not take old bills, because he had a pouch that looked like, on his side, and it was stuffed with money. Before he left, he sent me up to the room to pick up something, I don't know what it was. He gave me his key. When I went up there, there were stacks of money over here and over here, tied up with something looked like a rubber band, but it was black. And it was laying there, clear view, 2 stacks, one here and one here. I got whatever he told me. I looked up, I never touched it. And I brought it back and gave it to him. Him and Mr. Riggs then was in the van with Earl going to play golf, because Earl was his caddy. And Earl carried him anywhere and everywhere he wanted to go. And I guess, Earl told me, he told Mr. J. Paul that I was a good man that had checked me out. I had never been in any kind of trouble. I had a perfect record, good employee, didn't drink, didn't smoke, nothing. Well, that just made him feel comfortable. And I said, I guess when he get back and see that money, I think he's going to count it and think, I said, but I ain't touched nothing. I ain't heard nothing from it. But when Earl, when he left, Earl told me, he said, he thinks a lot of you, Newkirk. I said, really? He said, yeah. He said, what did he do when you left out the room? I said, he didn't say nothing but goodbye. I said, oh. But making a long story short, I was treated so well. Mr. Riggs was the supervisor. And what I don't quite understand, Mabel was his maid. And he had one son. Mabel was the maid for Mrs. Riggs. Miss Riggs was a beautiful redhead. Oh, she had such a beautiful red hair. And Mabel was never mentioned anywhere. But she was the #1 colored lady on this island. Earl Hill was the #1 colored man on this island. Nathaniel was next, and Romeo, who was a truck driver, he was in charge of the linen and so forth and on. And of course, I was the #1 bellhop at night. And I did not know that we had to be among the most trusted men, because we was in rooms where they were money. Now, Mr. Rockefeller over there, I don't know if I told you this. Mr. Rockefeller had 4 safes in his house. When he left stacks of money on each one of them stairs. I'm talking about stacks of money. Like this.
Wow.
Tied down on each end. Earl Hill was in charge of Mr. Rockefeller's mansion. Earl had the key, and when Mr. Rockefeller left, Earl said, the last time he saw him, Earl, your pay, you will get it every week. And he had it fixed that Earl got his pay from the money that was laying up there. And Earl said he never got 1 penny more than what he was supposed to get. And you see, back then, when a slave died, his servant, master, would already have $500 in his will, so that was to bury him or her when they died. And Earl used, Nathaniel was Earl's personal assistant. Said Nathaniel ain't gonna have to worry. Earl ain't gonna have to worry when he died because his burial is already paid for. Mr. Rockefeller's already paid for it. But anyway, that's really the the gist of it. But here, I thought about how I was treated. I didn't know anything about racism. I never heard that word until in the 60s. I thought that's just the way it was. I didn't know. I felt I had everything I needed, everything I wanted. I'm well employed. But then during the 60s, they started to talk about racism. I didn't know what. So I said, what is that? And they said that's a separate of the races. But anyway, when I left here, this hotel was now going into change from Jekyll Island Hotel Club to Jekyll Island State Park. Mr. Talmadge was the governor. And what made me so angry with leaving here, Mr. Talmadge made a remark that the Negroes ain't worth but 50 cents a day. And anyone wear overalls, that's all they will get as long as I am governor. That kind of, it bothered me.
Yeah, you worked hard for your money.
Yeah, so, but he said that to get elected. But I thought about Mr. Riggs, Mr. Relaford, who were the two top men that I was under and answered to, and me and Earl and everybody else. They treated me, I would say, as they would any other person, white or black. Mr. Relaford, trusted me to go up there on that ran the third floor over there. That's where he had a 2-bedroom over there. He was never married. Well, he wasn't married, I know. I went over there, cleaned he had 53 neckties, silk ties. I cleaned every one of them with lighter fluid.
Oh, wow.
Pressed them.
So were the silk ties better than the leather
yes.
ties?
Oh, yeah,
that you
they
had?
were easy to tie. And they were more prettier
okay.
and glossier. And he was a very, very dresser. And all of his clothes fitted him so perfect. So Mr. Relaford had me to go up there one day, come in, or other word, John, I'll pay you. I went up there and cleaned 53 ties, and his neckties was all silk ties. He had wing-tip shoes, genuine leather wing-tip shoes, a brown pair and a black pair. I had to polish them. And he wanted a spit shine. Spit shine is what the military wanted and had. So he wanted me to give his shoes a spit shine. And I worked until about 2 o'clock, from about 9 to 2. He went up there, and the next day he come back, he said, John. I said, yes, sir. You did a H-E-L-L-L-E, good job. I said, oh, Mr. Rello. I said, you said, yes, I am. I'll take care of you. You know, he forgot. He never gave me a nickel.
Oh, gosh.
But his kindness paid me for the way I felt I should have been treated. It wasn't the money. It was his kindness. Mr. Riggs was the same way. Mr. Riggs trusted me to go in his apartment to take ice to Miss Riggs and his son and Mabel, and he'd always tell me to take him ice over there at 2 o'clock. Big pitcher of ice and club soda, 2 club sodas. But anyway, they treated me excellent. But what was so intriguing with me, which I didn't know, I was already investigated after I came here by the FBI
Wow.
because there was a man here who had killed a man
Uh-oh.
and he changed his name, working right there in the bar every night, changed his name, and the house security had been tipped off by the FBI in Brunswick that there was a man over here. They need to check him out because he's wanted by the FBI. So they checked me out and they checked him out, and it wasn't me. I didn't know anything about it, but it was him. So they came, 4 Secret Service men like they were just tourists, to the bar and sat down and had a, little light snuffing, drank. And so after they had, from what the security police told me, matched his original picture with his nose and mouth, which really gave him away. They said, he's the man. And they called him out by his right name. He said, I'm not. He said, oh, yes, you is. So one drew the gun, and the other took the handcuffs out of him and led him out. And after that, I found out that I had come here just after him. So, you know what I mean. They didn't know who I was or nothing. But I had nothing in my record whatsoever. And once I was checked out by the FBI, the state trooper was on this island. He was the chief law enforcement officer on Jekyll Island. Now it is called, his car had on it Jekyll Island State Police. State Police, that's what it was. And he was the chief law enforcement. So after he realized that I was a very honest colored boy, 17-year-old boy, wasn't no man, and he said, John, come here. They came down to the barrack down there where we lived, because I said we lived up on, and I was shooting a horseshoe down there. He said, did you go to town today? I said, yes, sir. He said, did anybody go with you? I said, there was one gentleman. I said, I'm the only one come back. He said, nobody came back with you? I said, no, sir. But they were looking for a man. But I said all that to say this. By me being a single man, a young man, coming to this island all by myself from a nobody's land, because nobody ever heard tell of Garfield, Georgia. Nobody had ever heard tell of Twin City, Georgia. And when I told them Garfield and Twin City, they didn't know what in the world I was talking about. I said, where is that? And I said, it is 9 miles from my house in the rural. I didn't know what the name of the highway, or to tell them how to get to it whatsoever. See, that was an investigation. But I made myself available in any and every way. And here is what was so important to me. Whenever large sums of money was to be distributed to the San Souza resident, where I stay now, Crane resident, Gould, Rockefeller, I was the one who carried it.
Sounds like an honor.
And it was a saran wrap. It was wrapped up in something like saran, you know. I didn't. He just told me to take it over there and give it to so-and-so. Well, nothing. When I said money, I'm talking about like that. Brand new bill. So I was trusted in every sense of the word with money. I don't know how much money.
Probably best not.
Oh, yes. Oh. But then now, I am the top boy of the island. But when I told Mr. Briggs I was going to leave, because now I want to get married.
Wow. Couldn't leave her out there by herself forever.
No, right. Right. So I came home and proposed to her mother. I had to ask her mother. She said, yeah. But here was what was so funny. Her mother told me, she said, you can have my baby, but if you and her don't get along, you bring her back to where you got her from. I said, oh my God. I was afraid, because I said, what so if we don't get along, am I got to take her back? But that's really about the gist of my story. But I really want to write a book.
You want to write a book? That's great.
And
You've got a lot of stories to fill it up with.
You think so?
Yes.
And I ain't giving you what I'm saying. It's the facts. I am an ordained minister. I went to college at Bible Training Institute in Cleveland, Tennessee. For 2 years, they could not be credited because they wouldn't subscribe to the Atlanta accreditation courses that make institution accredited college. So making a long story short, I went 2 years, and on the third year, it became Thomas E. College. So I was well educated in the scripture and whatever. And they sent me all over the world, teaching, preaching, promoting. The wife and I have traveled all over the United States in some 19 countries.
Wow, that is awesome.
And so she was the smartest girl in my class. And that was a beautiful little black girl. And she had her hair fixed in the donut. And you didn't see that. 2 big donuts on this side. And a ball, rolled up. And, oh, that was a good-looking little black girl. Very smart. But the principal didn't like me because he thought I was a bully, but I never got in any trouble. I never gave him any trouble because my reason for going to her class, my principal tried to beat me about something I didn't do, and I wouldn't allow him to do it. I says I didn't do it, and I will not be punished for it. So the superintendent of Manly County Schools said, we don't have a program that you beat every child in the class to get the right one. And my dad was the chairman of the PTA. And my mother was a part-time teacher there. And so Mr. Blackburn, who was the superintendent, told my dad and the board of directors that y'all can fire him now or let him teach out his contract. So they choose not to fire him. So Daddy pulled us all out of school, and we went up to her school in Jenkins County, which was 12 miles from where we lived. So that's how we met. Now I'm going to conclude. I don't know if I made any sense to you.
I've really enjoyed hearing your story. I mean, it's great.
And all of what I'm saying to you, it is real.
Yes.
And the people here, once they learn who are, Earl Hill was number 1. Nathaniel was number 2. John Newkirk was number 3. I was in that. And of all of these men, I was the only one that had a 10th grade education.
Oh, wow.
Nathaniel went to the 2nd or the 3rd grade, and Earl never said what grade he went to because he was the caddy for Mr. William Rockefeller when he was a boy.
Oh.
And when Mr. William died, he became a caddy for Mr. John D. Rockefeller. And Mr. John D. Rockefeller had all of the knowledge of Earl from his dad. So Earl was the chief man of this island until Mr. J. Paul Getty would come. Everything now is Mr. J. Paul, or is under him, you know. Mm-hmm. And what I didn't know, that Chase Manhattan and this man, he was, from what I heard, 40% owner of Chase Manhattan and one of the richest men in the world.
Like Chase Bank? Chase
right.
Manhattan, that thing?
That's right. Chase Manhattan. It was Chase Morgan Bank. And Mr. Morgan was second in command. Mr. William Rockefeller first, then he died. John D., and then Nelson David Rockefeller now is the only one that's living. Mm. Oh, no. Mr. J. Rockefeller is a congressman there in Virginia. All very, very fine. But they were the richest men in the world.
That they were.
And I said, I had told my wife about this years ago, and I forgot where I heard the statement. Mr. J. Paul Getty said, when he brought his yacht here over 80 years ago, someone asked him, how much did your yacht cost, Mr. Martin? He said, you know what? When you have to ask what it costs, you shouldn't buy it.
That's my favorite line from Sherry when she gives a tour.
Yes. It's down there on that slogan.
You gotta ask.
If you have, you know what I thought about when I went into it? Here's what taught me a lesson.
So you heard him say that directly?
No, I didn't hear him say. Earl heard him say it.
Okay.
Earl Hill heard him say it. Earl Hill is the one who told me he said that. And so Earl and I laughed about it. So when I went over to Brumps, Earl said, don't go over there, ask them how much it costs. And that's the way it was. And I thought about that when I read it down here. And I said, I know he said it. And I said that to say this. Money to them was not important. You know who was important to them? The guests of this hotel. That's who was important to those men. Let me tell you this about Mr. Ford. Mr. Henry Ford. Henry Ford.
Ford, okay.
Mr. Henry Ford came here to join the Millionaires Club. Mm-hmm. Earl Hill was a very good friend of Mr. Rockefeller and Mr. Getty. So Mr. Ford told Mr. Getty and Rockefeller he wanted to join. And making a long story short, they told him, you was not born a millionaire. You cannot be a member of the club. Oh. Earl said Mr. Henry Ford stormed off of this island, went and hired him a boat, and it ferried him to Brunswick. He hired him a driver from Brunswick and drove to Savannah, Georgia. He built him a multi-million-dollar mansion, and it is called the Henry Ford Mansion today.
Oh, really?
It's still standing.
That's in Savannah.
And so years later, I was told, Earl said they wanted Mr. Ford to come back, and they would, recant, take back. He said, hell no. You didn't want me then, and you don't want me now. So he never came back to this island. And that's a fact, because I went to his museum in Savannah, and it's still standing. It's now nobody lives in it. The Henry Ford Museum. He built it even bigger than Rockefeller, bigger than Crane. In fact, it's 3 or 4 stories tall.
Wow.
Big, all his a mansion. So they wouldn't
Did
let
it to
him.
prove them all wrong, huh?
Yeah, and he. But now, here's what happened. Mr. Rockefeller and Mr. Getty contacted him again about buying Ford cars and vans for the island. He said, "Oh yeah." He sold him a red Ford van, 41 or 42, I don't know. A red 10.5 truck and a Jeep. The Jeep, I think that might have come from Dodge. Walter P. Chrysler had a son named Dodge, and he named the cars after his son. Mr. Walter P. Chrysler, who owned it, Chrysler, and the Packard Company, or Mr. Packard, owned it, Packard. So General Motors and Ford put them all out of business. And so Packard no longer is in business. And what is that? There's another one out of business. I can't think of his name. But anyway, making a long story short, Mr. Henry Ford agreed to send them down what they wanted in vehicles by these these truck transport things. They come to Jacksonville. They picked it up from Jacksonville and brought it to Brumley. And from Brumley, they ferried it over here on the Robert E. Lee. And I understood they was laughing about it.
He must have marked them out really well.
He did.
Yeah. He wasn't giving them to
That's
for
what they
a
said.
good
That's what they said. Earl was, their confidence. He would listen to them and hear them. He says Earl made him. Earl said he made them pay through the gill.